So let me talk about what we're going to try and give you for a take-home value today. And then after this section, we'll have a first break. So we're still learning how to be angel investors and entrepreneurs. And the part that I think that we're least good at is the exit. And as I said earlier, of the saleable companies that we help the entrepreneurs build, we only have good exits in about 1/4 of them. But the good news is that I think we can easily get to 50% that are good exits. And my ultimate ambition, if I'm successful with the rest of my career, is to get it to something more like 75%. I'm just amazed by the loss of wealth in how bad we are in this process. And I believe that we can realistically believe that we can get from our current dismal 25% success rate to at least 50%. And just imagine what that would do to your portfolios. That would literally double the returns on your portfolio if we could just do 25 to 50. And I think 75 is possible if we could get enough knowledge out just amongst the board members. We don't have to help the entrepreneurs do this. We can just do this if we can get angels and board members up to speed. So my goal here is to provide you with the take-home knowledge and skills to increase the probability that your companies have successful exits. So you'll have more of them, you'll have better returns on your investments, and ultimately I think we'll all have more fun. One of the first things I want to do is to get out the idea that it's surprising to me how much you hear about exits is wrong. And I think it's not just wrong, it's dangerously wrong. There are a great many myths and misperceptions about how this really works. And there are a lot of experts, with the air quotes, and there's quite a few dirty secrets about how this actually happens. Because there's a lot of large dollars and a lot of self-interest and a lot of things that nobody or very few people talk about. And so this workshop is about what actually works today in our current economy. One of the things that I think is a dangerous misperception is that I often hear that companies should be bought, not sold. And I didn't even know what that meant for a long time, but what I think people are saying is that they think that when it's time, someone's going to magically knock on the door and offer to buy the company. And while I admit, and I just gave you some examples of where that has happened, it is virtually never a good thing for the shareholders. And it's not just that you're going to get a much lower price. That's almost a certainty. More importantly, the probability of success decreases when there's only one bidder. So again, optimum exits require strategy and planning. One of the other ideas I want you to hopefully leave here with is that the exit is just another business process. And it's the same as whether you're doing a financing, product development, or whether you've got some kind of a marketing or a sales goal. The chances of success increase dramatically if you have a good plan. Well, I would suggest that the exit strategy is just the plan for the business, the entire business. That's what you're there for. You're there to make the shareholders money. Sometimes the entrepreneurs have other motivations, but at the simplest term, I think it's the simplest way. That's what this is all about. Certainly in the companies that I invest in, that better be what it's all about. That's what I think I'm getting involved for, is to get a return on that investment. So like all good plans, I think it should start at the end with the goal. And even though this is the exit execution workshop, I got a couple of quick slides on strategy just to orient us here. And we talk about this a lot more in the first workshop. But the first step in any exit is to have an exit strategy. Sometimes people who come and talk to me, they're ready to sell. They haven't done this first step, quite a few times actually. But this drives everything else in the business plan. And it also affects a surprising number of daily decisions. And it doesn't have to be complicated. The exit strategy, you could also call it the exit goal, could be as simple as saying, our exit strategy is to sell the company in about blank years for blank dollars. And these days that could be blank months because things are happening so fast. And you could make it more comprehensive. You could say things like, we plan to execute the exit by engaging a mid-market M&A advisor by a certain date. Or you could say things like, we plan to start the process when we break even, or we plan to start the process when we can prove the business model. These are all things that we talk about in the exit strategies workshop. But through some process, what you have to do is you have to figure out what kind of a company this is, the state of the economy and the microeconomy in which that company operates, and the M&A market for companies like that. These are all essential inputs in developing that strategy. And then once you think you've got that, another thing that's a really important part of the process is to check the alignment amongst all of the shareholders, all of the stakeholders in this company. It's surprising to me how often there's a serious misalignment. And this isn't just amongst the entrepreneurs or not just amongst the board or the shareholders. You've really got to think about the whole organization and who are the decision makers, who are the people that have to be happy with the result. And I believe that the only way to check this is to get a sign off, literally sign off on a piece of paper on that exit strategy. And in my experience, that often requires at least one off-site planning retreat just to build that alignment. Sometimes it's easy. Sometimes there's like two entrepreneurs. They talk about it every day. It's a 2-minute conversation. Other times, worst case, it took me over a year once working intensely with a board to get clarity on that exit strategy. But I think we all owe a bit of a debt to John Houston, because he's improved on this by saying that what they do at the Ohio Tech Angels, and this is John's brilliant addition to all this, is he says they do it at every board meeting. It's on every board agenda. The exit strategy comes right after reading the minutes from the previous meeting. They say, okay, here's our exit strategy again. Any conversation, any discussion, we're all clear on the main objective here. Let's get on with the rest of the meeting. I think that's brilliant. I think that if we could do that study I talked about, and if we could isolate that one element, I think that one best practice might increase the probability of having a successful exit by, I don't know, 5, 10, 15%, just by maintaining that alignment at the board level. Peter.
Does John require that? Does that go into the term sheet?
I don't know whether it goes into the term sheet, but it's a practice there. Doesn't?
That would be kind of cool.
One of the things that John does talk about, though, is, when they sit, this again, exit strategy, but when they sit down with the entrepreneurs, as I've had him describe it, they say, okay, our plan is to get out in 3 to 5 years. You're going to make 3 to 5x on your investment. Is that accurate? And so he does at the investment stage, and I think, again, this is a good practice for all of us to think about before you write the check, just to check whether or not you have alignment with those entrepreneurs at that stage.
Also determining whether or not they are saying what they believe. I mean, I hear that every day.
I know. I was.
They advertise multiple. Okay, they read that somewhere in the book.
I was just going to say that, and I thought, no, this is the exits execution workshop, and that's strategy. But yes, those entrepreneurs, in my experience, they're like those bobble-headed things in your car. They're always going like, whatever it is, whatever you need, yes, because they need the money, right? So I think it's not just a case of having the discussion. I think that more and more we should be building this into the term sheet. I had a fascinating conversation about a month or so ago at the Northwest Angel Capital Association meeting in Seattle. And a lot of the thinking on term sheets that we use throughout the country now comes from Dan Rosen, who was instrumental in building the most widely used angel term sheet, his light version. And Dan asked me what I thought of a new idea, which was to actually build a put into the term sheet so that it wasn't just the alignment, it was actually a financial mechanism to put pressure on the entrepreneurs to do what they said they were going to do. And again, this is at the leading edge now. Nobody knows whether that's a good idea or not, but that's what they're thinking in Seattle. It might be a good idea. Great topic for conversation. I don't know the answer.
We have that clause. We use that clause in the company, and that's why we have our second exit last year. So I have that clause. Everything depends on that clause.
Excellent. So you have a put clause in your term sheets and have had as early as 2008. Well, you're really the innovator then. That's the first example that I've heard of angels doing that. VCs have done it for a long time, by the way. But when you say we, can you just tell what part of the country or where are you from?
I'm from Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Thank you. Well, Silicon Pastures has been doing it, and it's worked well in at least one case. And again, it doesn't take many to work that make it worth doing. Well done.
And I think the three major angel groups in Ohio have to have some clauses as well. The only thing that we found is that they've never been exercised, ever. So they are a little bit of a hammer.
So three groups in Ohio are doing that. That's really encouraging. Again, you know, I don't know what it is. There's a little cluster there of innovative thinkers. And I'd love to hear, when it gets to be time, how those actually play out. Because, you know, in my view, those are more psychological than they are financial. You know, it's not like these companies are going to have all kinds of cash flow and you can just, you know, put that essentially debt to them. But I think from a negotiating perspective and a clarity of alignment, I think it's a brilliant idea.
New York Angels, we have something after 7 years, the ability to, you know, get out. Right? Imagine the giant cash flow, they just gone sideways and don't want to sell. But again, I don't think it gets extra time.
Interesting. You know, just to continue on this idea, and I think you just said it, that the New York Angels were doing this. Was it like a revenue royalty kind of an idea?
No, I think it was basically put in there before my time. So if the company is doing just fine, but the entrepreneurs are just happy, you know, increasing their salaries and not exiting ever, that I think there'd be that possibility into the door to just get out of it, and just make a little interest on what we put in.
Well, the interesting question, just going down this path, which is interesting to see how far down the road some of you are, is how do you do it? You know, in the old VC days, it was a put. It was a simple, we're going to give you the shares back and you're going to write us a check. Not very practical. But what Dan Rosen was thinking about was some kind of a revenue-based royalty program. So it wasn't a hammer as much as you were trying to, can I say, bleed them? Well, again, maybe it's completely fair because, again, you went in with a certain understanding. If it wasn't happening, then there should be some mechanism. But just to wrap up this section, then we'll have a break. So I think that this strategy is really the highest level strategy in the organization and the foundation for the entire plan. And it aligns the team on their most important goal, which is, of course, the maximization of the shareholder value, but also the optimum timing of its monetization. I think number 2 is where we go wrong much more often. And I've got some videos from sessions like this that I've recorded up on my blog that I hope might be helpful in helping some of you and your investee companies to do this better. And one on what not to do, which was my own first exit story, where I got the courage up to admit all the things that I did wrong in my own first exit. And for some reason, that's the most popular one on my blog. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, let's take a 10-minute break. We'll resume in 10 minutes, and we'll continue with what I hope you find to be a valuable learning process.